Let's dive into something you've probably heard 100 times, a concept from the Old Testament that feels so familiar, the sin offering. But today, we're going to look at it from a whole new angle. What if the main point wasn't actually what we've all assumed it was? Seriously. Answering that question might just change how you see the entire sacrificial system, and maybe even how you see your own relationship with God. Okay, so here's the big idea in a nutshell. We tend to think of the sin offering as being all about the sinner and what they did wrong, earning forgiveness. But a better way to think about it, a more accurate translation from the Hebrew, is purification offering. And that simple change completely reframes the goal. It shifts the focus away from the person and onto the sacred space where God and humanity meet. The goal wasn't just forgiveness, it was preserving that vital connection. Now, to really get why this is such a big deal, we have to understand why the location was so important. I mean, this wasn't just about some ritual happening in a vacuum. It was all about where it took place. And that gets right to the heart of what God wanted from the very beginning. Think about this. God's plan wasn't to be some distant, far-off deity. His whole desire was to come down and live right in the middle of his people. This was a huge deal, an incredible act of grace. But it also created a new reality. If a holy God is going to live among an unholy people, you need a special, clean, and holy place of encounter. And this place of encounter was designed with these amazing zones of increasing holiness. You had the outer courtyard, which was the main point of contact for everyday people. Then you go a layer deeper, into the holy place, which was for the priests doing their daily work. And then, at the very center of it all, hidden behind a thick veil, was the most holy place. Only the high priest could go in there, and only once a year. So this all comes down to one really important Hebrew word, ḥaṭṭā't. Now, our Bibles usually translate this as sin offering, but a more precise meaning is actually purification offering. You see, its main job wasn't to punish someone for sinning, but to decontaminate the sanctuary. It was about cleaning up the spiritual pollution so that communion with a holy God could continue without anyone getting hurt. Okay, so if it's a purification offering, how did the actual cleansing work? Well, the key is found in a very powerful and, let's be honest, often misunderstood symbol, the blood of the sacrifice. And this right here is a total game changer. The blood of the ḥaṭṭā't wasn't put on the person to make them clean. No, it was applied to the furniture of the sanctuary, the altars, the veil, the mercy seat itself. It basically acted like a powerful ritual detergent, scrubbing the sacred space clean from the contamination that sin had caused. And there was this amazing, precise logic to the whole system. Check it out. If an ordinary person sinned, the contamination was seen as affecting the outer court, so the blood was applied to the bronze altar out there. If a priest sinned, someone with more influence and who worked closer to God's presence, the contamination went deeper, so the blood had to be applied to the incense altar inside the holy place. And if the high priest or the whole nation of Israel sinned, well, that was the most serious. The defilement was thought to reach the very heart of the sanctuary, and the mercy seat itself had to be purified. Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine the sanctuary is a room where you get to meet with God. Every time sin or impurity happens, it's like smoke starts to fill that room. Pretty soon, the air gets thick, it's hard to breathe, and that relationship, that communion, gets suffocated. The ḥaṭṭā't offering wasn't about punishing the person who lit the match. It was about throwing open all the windows and clearing the air so you could be together again. Now, this entire system, as beautiful and profound as it was always pointing to something bigger. It was a copy, a shadow of the ultimate heavenly reality. And that, my friends, is where this whole story finds its climax. The book of Hebrews just spells it out for us. The logic is crystal clear. If the earthly copies, the tabernacle and its furniture, needed to be purified with the blood of animals, then the heavenly originals, the true place where we meet God, would need a much better, much more perfect sacrifice to purify them once and for all. And of course, that perfect sacrifice is Jesus. He is the ultimate ḥaṭṭā't. He didn't walk into a temple made by human hands. He walked into heaven itself. He didn't offer the blood of goats or bulls. He offered his own. And his one-time offering wasn't a temporary fix. It secured eternal redemption. It did what the old system could only point to. It purified not just a physical space, but our very consciences. So this brings us to that famous and sometimes confusing verse where it says, God made him to be sin. What on earth does that mean? Well, seeing it through the lens of the temple, it clicks into place. It doesn't mean Jesus became morally evil. It means, in the language of Leviticus, that God made him our ultimate ḥaṭṭāqq, our definitive, final purification offering. He was the one who had finally cleansed everything that sin had ever contaminated. Let's just be super clear about this. Jesus didn't become a sinner. He became the solution to sin's contamination. He became the ultimate cleansing agent that purifies our access to God, clearing the way so we can have this direct, unhindered, face-to-face relationship with the Father. So, thinking about it this way leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. If the Old Testament shows us that God's top priority was cleansing and protecting the space where he could be with his people, and if Christ has now done that perfectly and forever, well, how does that change the way we think about approaching him today? Maybe, just maybe, it's less about us trying to earn our way in, and a whole lot more about gratefully and confidently living in the clean, open space he has already provided for us.